We're going back to the anti-idol side of things, and if there's one group that we must talk about when it comes to anti-idols, it would be this one. They were known for their rather provocative music videos, insane performances, and equally insane fans. By popular request, in this episode of Otaku Files, we talk about the legendary alternative idol group, BiS. Most of us outside of Japan may not be aware of some of the more interesting personalities within the Japanese otaku landscape, so I thought I'd do a little video series and try to shed some light on these individuals. This is Otaku Files. Standing for Brand New Idol Society, or Shinsei Idol Kenkyukai in Japanese, BiS were an alternative idol group that were active from around the end of 2010 up until a few months ago as of this recording. During that period, they also disbanded twice. Currently, BiS's timeline is broken down in generations. The first gen being from 2010 to 2014, the second gen from 2016 to 2019, and the third gen that started from around a month after the second gen's disbandment in 2019. For this video though, we will mainly be focusing on the first gen and their formation, as well as their reputation. Now, to talk about BiS's origins, we need to talk about the group's former leader and the one considered to be BiS's founder, Rui. Originally from Yono, located in Saitama, Rui actually started off as a solo artist around 2009, calling herself New Age Rock Icon. Definitely starting out big. Her manager at the time was Watanabe Junnosuke, who would actually become the founder of the music production group WAC, and would also help Rui start BiS as well as be involved in their overall production. WAC would be known to have a number of more non-traditional idol groups under them, such as BiS from their second generation, BiS, ASP, Gang Parade, and so on. Now, Rui had always been into music and admired many different singers. She even started a band during middle school within the school's music club. Unfortunately, the club ended up getting abolished, but she started another band during high school, which even included members from other schools. Amazingly, her band even played at some small music venues known as Raibu House in Japanese. She was serious about entering the world of showbiz, and even took a number of auditions from her third year of high school. The one she managed to pass was an audition set up by the indie record company Tsubasa Records, titled Kawashima Ai ni Tsuzuke Major Debut Audition, which we can translate as Follow in the Footsteps of Kawashima Ai, the audition to make your major debut. For those that don't know, Kawashima Ai was a prolific singer-songwriter who unfortunately ended up stopping her activities in 2023 due to ongoing complications from vocal cord surgery. She was made to take on the name Rui, as essentially instructed within an email sent by Junnosuke explaining that it meant for him in French. She would then make her debut as the sort of protege of Kawashima Ai, singing only love songs, which apparently was the concept she was given. Now, you might be wondering, where do idols come into the picture? Well, Rui was actually a massive fan of idols, especially Morning Musume. She particularly admires Takahashi Ai. I also have a video on Morning Musume for anyone interested. Her solo activities as an artist though weren't going that particularly well, and as a way to market her, Junnosuke contacted Ototoi, a fee-based music distribution website that also shares music-related news. The plan was to put up regular stories or articles based on Rui for a year. However, in the course of their conversations, one of Ototoi's editors noticed that she spoke passionately about idols, and then suggested, if you like them so much, why don't you become an idol yourself? To which Rui thought, yeah, let's do that. And that's what would eventually lead to the formation of BiS. So no, it wasn't a suggestion from Watanabe Junnosuke, and interestingly, when the idea was brought up, Rui says that Junnosuke made a weird face. At the time, Rui and Junnosuke didn't actually work that well together. Junnosuke was very strict with her, and that made her pretty much hate him. Seeing that weird look on his face was all she needed. She agreed to turn to the idol path. So instead of the articles being solely about Rui, it would be about the forming of her idol group. It also ended up being for more than 1 year, being a more permanent thing. However, Junnosuke wasn't very happy with the whole idol idea, and even at the beginning told Rui that she was on her own after failing to convince her to change her mind. This idea of doing it by yourself is actually what formed the basis for BiS's motto of DIY, something that prevailed throughout BiS's whole run. There is even footage of members setting up things before a concert. However, since starting things completely by herself was surprisingly a lot more challenging than one might have thought, Junnosuke did end up helping Rui out. Through Tsubasa Records, auditions were held to find members for her idol unit. Even though a PR campaign was also done for the auditions that were held in 2009, there were only around 30 people that applied. Luckily for Rui though, around that time the idol scene was completely blowing up, especially in Akihabara. Groups like Momoiro Clover Z, or should I say Momoiro Clover, that debuted around 2008 were gaining a lot of popularity, and even the idol group Puspo hit the top spot of the Oricon charts for the very first time. As you might have guessed, Junnosuke started to like the whole going anit-idol idea. As he explained in an interview, that was a time where even if the idol group weren't known, you would still get 30 or so people that would come and buy tickets for a show. I bet his eyes started turning into yen signs. The auditions for BiS were also shown via the streaming service Ustream, showing Rui interviewing each of the auditionees. Out of those that applied, 4 were selected, which, including Rui, would make 5 members in total. However, one of those selected decided to drop out, leaving BiS with 4 members that would make their debut: Rui, Hirano Nozomi, Yokoyama Rina, and Nakayama Yukiko. BiS's concept was a group of 4 that were pursuing their goal of becoming idols by researching idols. In other words, they weren't going off on the premise that they were already idols, but were just trying to be idols. Also, quote-unquote, researching idols also meant taking inspiration from other idol groups, and sometimes just straight up copying choreography. As some of you might know, the interpretation of this concept would eventually change too, just by a little. Officially, BiS's activities started from November 2010, but the first song they would release would be Taiyo no Jumon, released January the following year, a song from their debut album, the self-titled Brand New Idol Society, that would come out not so long after that. Although their songs were what one might consider to be more traditional idol songs, they still had that aggressive vibe that they would be more well known for down the line. A fundamental reason for this is that the people involved with helping BiS in terms of their production and behind the scenes would eventually become employees of WAC, or another music production company that they would often work with called Scrambles. They also happen to be the same people that helped with Rui's past solo career. For their first live performance, the ones that actually booked the event were the members themselves. According to Rui, they lucked out. Through one of the members' connections, they managed to perform at an event where a group called Predia, who are associated with PASPO, were also doing their first performance, meaning there were a lot of PASPO fans who turned up for that particular show. A pretty good start. However, when talking about BiS, there is of course one thing that must be brought up, and that's the insane way that they ended up marketing themselves, most notably through their provocative and sometimes controversial music videos, as well as their pretty over-the-top live performances. Being an indie group, which basically meant their budget was practically non-existent, their management, aka Watanabe Junnosuke, thought the only way to really make the group stand out and be noticed was through these methods. Junnosuke is actually a pretty controversial character among the Japanese interwebs for reasons such as these and others, but I won't get into all that for this video. And the first music video we would see from BiS that would start the flames going is for their self-titled song. Being filmed in a train station, we can see the girls performing acts like cleaning and decorating the inside of a train. With what seems to be real passengers, this video received quite the backlash at the time of its release. Oh, and while standing up during the music video, Yokoyama Rina flashed her underwear or whatever, and apparently that was a big thing at the time. Right. I guess management got what they wanted. The fun doesn't stop there, as for their next music video for the song Paprika, they essentially seem to parody Tattoo's All the Things You Said, mixing in headbanging and also stockings. Yeah. Rui was very much on board with a lot of the management team's ideas, agreeing that this is how they could stand out from the rest. And for sure, those videos certainly brought in numbers and helped BiS start to develop quite a cult following, gaining fans that recognized that BiS was doing something really different from other idol groups around that time. By the way, their next music video was for the song Nerve, a solid fan favorite, which honestly even I really like. Compared to the others, it's actually a fairly normal music video, however the packaging for the single looks like it's censored. Seems a bit familiar. Despite getting noticed, not everyone within the group felt comfortable with BiS's direction and the kind of reputation they started to gain. In later interviews, Rui would explain that there were actually a lot of arguments behind the scenes. I think it's important to understand that Rui had applied for tons of auditions, and it was the Tsubasa Records one that she finally managed to pass. Now experiencing some sort of success, she wanted to keep things going on as much as possible. She also commented that she was actually just enjoying herself, but for one member it was just all too much. After around 6 months, starting member Yokoyama Rina would end up leaving BiS. After all the weird things they were doing for their music videos, like randomly putting decorations around inside a train or headbanging with stockings pulled over their heads, Rina believed BiS had diverged far too much from her lifelong dream of being in a standard idol group. Her final performance in BiS was in the Lifehouse Shimokitazawa shelter on June 24th, 2011. This also wouldn't be the only time BiS had a member graduate. In fact, over the years, years, they would experience a number of member changes. A famous Japanese interviewer, Yoshida Go, who would also interview Rui years later, commented that he saw BiS as having two kinds of members, those that were brainwashed by Watanabe Junnosuke and those that were not. This might be a big reason as to why there was so much infighting. BiS's very untraditional direction for their music videos would lead to what is arguably the video most people think of when it comes to BiS. In July 2011, they released their music video for My Eye. In it, the members undress themselves and run seemingly naked through a forest. As you can imagine, this caused quite the stir, but they were using skin-colored covers, so they weren't actually fully nude. The video though now has over 12 million views on YouTube. In regards to the video, Junnosuke explains pretty much what I said previously, that it was all about getting people to know the group. Around that time, they only had about 100 people that would come and see them live, and as long as the members were on board with it, this is what he thought was necessary. Rui actually mentions that her family ended up watching the video, but thought it still wasn't as bad as Paprika. Based. Thanks to Junnosuke, over the course of those 4 years, BiS had done quite a lot of other nutty and weird things besides making provocative music videos on a budget. From making a weird hip-hop side project called DIS, to collabing with a band called Hijo Kaidan to form BiS Kaidan, delivering some of the craziest live performances you've ever seen. By the way, apparently fans at these shows had to sign a waiver so that the group wouldn't be sued if a fan gets injured by some flying object. If there was a chance to create some sort of buzz, BiS would take it. One thing that BiS did, which I haven't actually heard many talk about, is the time that Junnosuke made the members cosplay as different famous characters and try to invade a Momoiro Clover Z event. Member Nakayama Yukiko even ran up to a truck that was promoting the group. But it was all for naught, as apparently the event had already finished by the time they got there because Junnosuke messed up the time. BiS ended up doing a small impromptu performance on the street, and Junnosuke ended up doing a dogeza. Just another day for BiS. Despite all the backstage bickering and member changes, BiS created quite a name for themselves and even managed to get onto a major label in 2012. That would also mean that a lot of the more insane ideas that BiS had were rejected by the label, but on the other hand, they were also able to do bigger things. This would include 2 movies and even an animated series, all starring the BiS members. Pretty cool. However, over time, it seems that Rui's feelings towards the group started to change. I mean, with constant member changes and tales of negative exchanges behind the scenes, I guess it wasn't hard to see this coming. Not only that, it wasn't just Rui, but the management and the other members too that seemed to run out of steam. During an event in February 2014, BiS would announce that they would be holding their last concert on July 8th in Yokohama Arena. Apparently, they were hoping for the Budokan, Japan's most famous arena, but their reputation wouldn't allow for that. The first generation of BiS had an amazing run, and even to this day they are still talked about. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much. This was a much requested video. Of course, I do know who BiS is. I'm aware that they were really popular, and of course I'm aware of BiS as well, which if you want to see a video on them, please let me know in the comments below. But I think for BiS, it was more about their attitude, their style, the impact that they had at that time, being an idol group that was doing just something so different from any other idol group, and they basically developed a sort of cult following. But again, like I explained, Watanabe Junnosuke was behind a lot of that stuff, so I don't know if you want to thank him or curse at him depending on, you know, how you've viewed things. But anyway, that was an interesting video to do. Thank you so much for that request. If you have anything else you'd like me to cover, please let me know in the comments below. But until next time, thank you again, guys. Peace, take care, bye.